Let's need to make you you still the host.
You're on.
Hey guys, we're back. Sorry, we had a little technical issues, a little blip. You know, technology always messing up when you need it not to. But kind of going with some of the rest of our topics here. Of course, the NGCAA Junior College moved all their fall sports to the spring of 2021, beginning in late March or April. What do you guys think about that? I know some coaches out there. Hopefully, they call in and kind of give us their thoughts on what they feel with that. Oklahoma's Lincoln Riley also stated that he prefers football in the fall, but spring football is doable. Do you guys think that spring football is doable? What do you guys think about that kind of moving in terms of the Power Five conferences and winter sports such as basketball? The NFL and the NFLPA unveils the new Oakley mouth shield for NFL players to wear during the season to combat the coronavirus. You know, it seems like the NFL is going all out. So, you guys think this is a good move for the NFL? What do you think it's going to mean in terms of COVID-19 and the NFL season? So, let's jump into these topics. We got a great show for you. So let's start with the first. Washington Redskins owner Daniel Snyder finally agreed to change the name of the team. What do you guys kind of think about that? And what do you think the name maybe should be with all those names out there floating around? Raquel, get us started.
Right. Well, we talked about it last week, and I think we were all on the same page with them changing the name when it starts affecting the bottom line. You don't have a choice. So we knew that he didn't have a choice, and we knew that they were going to change it. There was no doubt there. People are demanding a change, and unfortunately in sports I think you're driven by what the fans want ultimately. So here he is changing his name, and I know he doesn't want to do it, but he's doing it because it's affecting the bottom line. When I think about names, I was doing some research and I saw some of the names that people were throwing out, but I think they should have red somewhere in the midst of the name, in all honesty. But there was one young man who said the Red Tails, and if any of you are aware, the Red Tails are the Tuskegee Airmen. It's a huge part of Black history for us, a very, very proud moment for us in history. So in all honesty, I wouldn't mind seeing the Washington Red Tails on their jerseys. I think it would mean a lot to our people. But when you look at that Washington, D.C. area, it's predominantly African-American, and I think he'll make the fans there very happy. I know some diehard Redskin fans who said to me, it's time for the logo to change. And I found it interesting because I didn't think they would be so passionate about it. But I think if they can incorporate something that celebrates Black history and something that we're proud of, I think it'll do the Redskins well. They're going to make a lot of money when they make this change. They're not going to lose money. And I think you'll see for the next 24 months, they're going to see a huge increase year over year when you look at apparel sales because of the logo change. So from a business standpoint, they're going to get back tons of money, more money than they're already making on apparel, and it'll make fans happy. And the Indians, of course, will feel as if they've gotten some justice. So I'm all on board with them changing the name, and I would love to see Red Tails.
Lee, what's your thoughts, man?
Yeah, Raquel stole my thunder, but I think that's that's the name. Warriors would be has a nice ring to it. I like Warriors too, but Red Tails, I could see a little airman with the little leather helmet on inside of a little plane. That'd be a beautiful sight, and the historical value of it in the DC area, I think it would be tremendous, as Raquel said. So Red Tails for me is the way to go. I don't know if that's where they're going, but I can say this. I know they already have a name picked out. I don't know what it is yet. I think they're going through all of the, the branding that they have to do. I'm hoping that that's it. But Snyder, as far as having to do it, of course he had to do it. It was time. It's interesting that, most Black people, my friends that live in the DC area that you talk to is very similar to what Raquel said. They were all in agreement with it, but they rolled right along with it when they didn't. And so that's kind of interesting right there. But for me, change the name, rebrand it. I mean, you're in D.C. What a great way to pay homage to all of the fight that the African Americans did throughout these wars, and such a tremendous name for the history, as people say, touchdown Red Tails. You can't beat that. So I like that. I like that. It has a good ring to it. So I hope they do go with the Red Tails. I think that'd be great.
I like the Red Tails ring also, but there's a few other names out there that might be kind of interesting now, right? I agree with Raquel. You got to keep red in it just from the color scheme,
Yeah,
and kind of trying to stay the same way, trying to stay uniform with that. But remember the old offensive line back in the '80s league,
the
the
hog.
Hogs. So they talking about maybe the Red Hogs. I kind of like the Red Hogs. That's look, bringing back some mystique from back in the day when you had John Riggins and all those
Right,
guys. You had
right, right,
Mark
Yep.
May.
right,
I mean,
right.
come on. But there's one that I really love. I'm gonna tell you what it is. It's the Red Wolves. I love the Red Wolves.
Yeah.
Also, and Washington fans could probably get on board with this. The Red Wolves are an endangered species, and wins in Washington hard to come by, so that kind of goes hand in hand. So,
It fits right
Oh
in. It
man,
fits right in
the
well,
wood belt,
huh,
I mean,
on the belt.
it fits right in, right,
Marvin?
Kevin Banks? I mean, it fits right in. And also, can you imagine 80,000 people in the fans howling like wolves in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
stadium? You know what I'm saying? Hey, look, that to me, that might be a natural fit. I'm kind of feeling the Red Wolves, but I agree, though. I think the Red Tails should be the way that they go. But if they went Red Wolves, I don't know how mad I'd be. I might like that.
Red Wolves ain't bad, Marv. A couple years ago, Arkansas State, they were the Arkansas State Indians, and they
Yeah,
changed their names to Red
yep,
Wolves.
Oh,
And
I didn't know that.
yep.
yeah. And so, excellent branding, beautiful, and the howling and all that good stuff at the games. So that's on point,
A
Marv.
good time for sure. A
That's
good
on
Yeah,
time
good.
after a couple drinks.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'm telling you, that's the way to go. But it'll
point.
be interesting to see how that plays out. So we'll move along into our next topic with the NBA
Well, before we
and the
move to
Los
that
Angeles.
topic, we do have a couple of comments on from YouTube from Kevin Banks, and he says, "I need to see what the design will look like for Red Tails," and then he says, "Haha, watch and see the team win."
Boy, Kevin, that's Washington's moniker every year. Watch and see. This is the
Kevin,
year.
keep your
Carrie Abel.
It's been a while. It's
keep your
been a while.
Redskin gear so you can remember the wins, because whatever their name is, they're gonna lose. That's what I know. So anyway,
All right.
We got another one, Lamondre.
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so moving on, we got the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers. Rajon Rondo out 6 to 8 weeks after a broken right thumb in practice. How do you guys feel like this is going to affect LeBron's chance at a title? Do you think that it's going to affect his chance at a title at all? So let's just kind of start with that discussion. Lee, let me start with you. What do you think about this
yeah, that's
injury with
tough right there,
Rajon?
Marv. It's tough because they don't have a lot of people that can handle the ball now outside of LeBron doing all the ball handling. I know Caruso might come in and do some of the ball handling, but that's tough. That's tough for the Lakers. They don't have a lot of depth anyway, as far as quality depth, and you don't want to tire LeBron out for the whole game handling the ball, setting up the offense. He's not 31 anymore, so that's tough for the Lakers. They added J.R. Smith, but he's not a ball handler. As I look down the roster right now, Marv, I don't even see who. I mean, Caldwell Pope can handle it a little bit, but from a facilitation perspective, I just don't see it. So that's a difficult chore for them losing Rondo. It's going to hurt. Now, can they still win the title? I think so. I think they still will win it. It's going to be tough. It brings them back, in my opinion, back to the pack a little bit more, because it's going to require LeBron to have maybe not triple doubles every game, Mark, but he's going to have 8, 9, 10 assists a game. You know what I'm saying? From the point forward position. Yeah. That's going to wear him down. So it's going to be tough. I still favor the Lakers because I just think Anthony Davis is going to bring a different element as long as he's healthy. But that's a big blow to what they're trying to get accomplished.
So Raquel, hear me out for 1 second, and Lee, listen to me too. At first, when I heard this, I was like, "Man, this is bad. This is bad for the Lakers." And then the more I started to dive into this, I'm thinking, okay, well, Los Angeles has the best point guard on the planet, who's LeBron James. I mean, let's just be real about it. You got Quinn Cook on the bench that can come in and give you quality minutes. He's won a championship with Golden State, so he could be a viable, 5-10 minute guy that you need. And Rondo's only going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, so he can still come back to make a playoff run with them. But then I started digging a little bit deeper. I'm like, okay, Rondo been on 6 teams in the last 7 years.
Been hurt every year.
Oh, okay. He get hurt at right. So how much is his value really to the Lakers at this point? I'm serious. You got the best point guard on the planet in LeBron. You got a viable backup, and you got some pieces that you could interchange that could probably take some pressure off LeBron for spells, not for a long time. But to me, I don't want nobody to make excuses for LeBron. This ain't a big enough loss to me to say that it's going to derail their championship hopes.
If I could get in real quick, Mark, the only thing that I would say, Quinn Cook is not a facilitator. He's more of an off the ball, catch and shoot guy. I worry about, LeBron has to rest at some point, and that's when I think the offense will break down just from a facilitation point. But as long as they can get it across the court when LeBron's off and you keep Anthony Davis and just dumping into him, I guess you might be all right. But you made some good points. Always hurt. Plus, he will be back. Conditioning always is an issue there. But
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Raquel.
So, Marv, I agree with 99% of what you said. At the end of the day, LeBron has to be LeBron, but this is the deal. Whether Rondo plays or not, LeBron still has to be LeBron for them to win. They don't get out of the series. They don't win the championship without him being extraordinary, as he has been in his whole career in the playoffs. Rondo being out, it does hurt a little, guys, because our backcourt, we've suffered all season because our backcourt has been a little weak, right? We don't necessarily have a bench, and we've been talking about this over the weeks. The Lakers does not have the bench that we would like for them to have going into the playoffs. So every player does matter. Rondo gives us 7 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds. LeBron can probably eat half of that, but you still have to get that production from someone else. So when you have someone come off the bench, if you can get 10 to 15 good minutes from any other player, it gives you the other half of Rondo's stats. So that has to happen. I think no matter what, I agree. Rondo doesn't make that much of a difference where we can say, okay, LeBron didn't win the championship because of Rondo. But I'll say this, every piece of this puzzle matters because, as Lee stated, he has to sit down and rest. He's going to have to lead the team on defense. He's going to have to lead them on offense. He has to set up every play, and he has to create for himself. And frankly, you still have to play defense, especially when you get into the playoffs. Defense, in my opinion, really does win games when you start talking about championship ball, especially late into the playoffs. So no matter what happens, LeBron will have to be extraordinary for them to win. Anthony Davis is certainly the X factor. I don't think there's anyone in the league that can really guard this guy. I don't think anyone can stop LeBron, but you can slow him down because of how many minutes he plays. He's tired. But as far as Anthony Davis, I don't think there's a team that can really stop him if he's on. So I think the Lakers are still going to win the championship. Rondo doesn't change that fate, but it's going to be a little more work to replace 7 points and 5 assists. And I don't think LeBron is going to be able to replace all of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Go ahead, Mark.
That's a good point, Raquel. I mean, he's averaging, I think, maybe 19, 20 minutes a game, but 7, 5, and 3, that's good stats coming off the bench for the minutes that he plays. I mean, it is. But I'm going to also throw this in here, Lee. I mean, LeBron had 5 months off. I don't want to hear about the fatigue. I mean, he hadn't gone through the whole season, and he jumping into the playoffs and going through the ground. He didn't have 5 months off, man. He should be ready. He get the best of everything, got the best trainers. LeBron eats better than anybody. I mean, no excuses, man. He should be ready to roll.
I'm with it. I just, Mark, you know this. He got to rest. But let me say this. I don't think
Marv knows better. Marv knows that this man can't play, full game for the whole playoffs and the championship.
It's LeBron. Yeah, he
can. He the king.
He the king.
King's rest.
I don't think the Lakers win the championship if LeBron James lead the Lakers in scoring, though, Marv. I agree. I think Anthony Davis has to be the alpha dog in the playoffs because I don't think they win if LeBron is their leading scorer. I agree. They have to maximize that matchup because there's no one in the East the West that's going to match up with him. So he's the big dog as far as riding them to the championship, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, keeping with the NBA, very good points, guys. We'll keep with the NBA. We got Russell Westbrook, who has revealed that he tested positive for COVID-19. Do you guys see this as a setback for the Houston Rockets in terms of winning a title? What do you guys think about that? I'm gonna go first on this because people love to talk about Houston, man. And I say the same thing about Houston every week. They play no defense. Okay, so they play no defense, right? They're allowing, I think last time I saw when the season ended, 111 to maybe 114 points a game. They're 14th in rebounding in the league. Westbrook's offensive rating is lower than his defensive rating. That's a big deal. That means you're giving up more than you've given, basically. All right. The Rockets rely on the three ball. Westbrook is shooting maybe 25% from 3-point range. So what that means is that people can double hard and get the ball out of his hand and let Westbrook do all the crazy stuff that he does. He's a great stats sheet stuffer, but the stats are they really shallow to me because he does a lot of things that look great and it looks good on paper. But honestly, right now, he doesn't defend and he doesn't make 3-point shots. So he's more of a liability to me on Houston than he is an asset. So I don't think it matters at all. Houston won't go win the title, no way.
He was on a tear before they left, though, Mar.
That's the deal.
He was on a tear. Before they left, he was playing some ball now.
They don't have a chance without him. I mean, I don't think they were going to win either, right? I agree. They don't play defense. They don't have all the key components, I think, to be a successful team when it comes to championship ball. But
man, look,
they're going to get as far in the play. I mean, he had 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and whether he hogs the ball, doesn't play defense, whatever the case may be, they will not replace that.
They're not going to replace it, but Houston has no size. They lost Capella. That's a big loss, getting rid of Capella. They've got no size, and they've got no depth. So, and you talking about, if they were in the East, maybe.
They were never going to win anyway.
Thank you, Raquel. That's what I said. They never going to win anyway. So,
I think if they had Capella, they would have a legitimate shot to make what? Just the size. But now remember, they went into LA and beat them by about 25 points, raining threes on them. So they always have a chance because of the way they shoot the ball. But
you're not going to do that for 7 games. I can tell you that.
They don't have to do it for 4. But I'll say this. If a team gets into the offense and slows it down, if you get into a running gun shootout with them, you're going to lose. But once a team settles down, you dump that ball into Anthony Davis, you abuse them, you get the P.J. Tuckers into foul trouble. That's how you beat them. But if you start going up and down with them, you in for a long night. They can make some noise. The COVID thing's not going to hurt Westbrook. He'll be back by the time the season starts and probably have to get in some conditioning. But Mark, do you think what's their ceiling? You think second round? You think
second round?
Second round.
That's it.
Second
no
round.
Further. I wouldn't be surprised.
They're going in.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go out in the first. To be quite honest,
that ain't gonna happen. That's too much firepower.
Look,
that's too much.
Look,
firepower.
Man.
Too much firepower.
I've seen it. I've seen enough of Harden. I mean, I've seen enough. I know what I'm gonna get from him. No D and a whole bunch of threes.
NBA title was never in the conversation, so I don't think it was really I think we didn't necessarily approach the topic correctly. It was never an option for them to win the title.
Well, look, y'all throwing too much shade on Westbrook though. Mark, he was balling.
It's fun to watch, but it's not basketball that can win. It's fun to watch, but it's not winning basketball.
I'm looking behind them numbers, Lee. He is upside down in offense versus defense. So he giving you 28, but he might be giving up 35 to whoever he guard. Like he upside down. So that's a big stat for me.
Yeah, I get it. No, I'm with you there.
Yeah. Lamar,
do we have a caller, right?
Yes, we do have a caller. Caller, you are on the air with After the Buzzer Sports Podcast. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm just waiting on the question. This is Coach Keaton. I'm waiting on the question about JUCO's playing in the spring.
Well, let's go to that. Let's go to that. We got Coach on and also, Coach, I know there was some pretty big news for you guys at Allen, correct?
That's right.
Tell us about the news you guys had at Allen real quick before we jump into that topic.
Well, we have, basically have.
Is he there?
Did we lose him?
Coach, are you there?
That's right. It was. We
Yeah,
well,
he's
I believe
having
his
some issues
his,
with
his,
his line.
transition to NCAA Division II. It's really significant for us because it's a really, really, really. Hello.
Coach, you broke
Yeah.
up a little bit. Can you start over because we missed exactly what you said?
I think he has to disconnect and call back in. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
do that.
We'll come back
we'll
to
let
it.
him maybe disconnect and then call back in, and we can come back to it. So we'll move on to the next topic. If Coach calls in, then we'll definitely jump back to it. So the NBA has tested 322 players since arriving in the bubble in Orlando. 2 players have tested positive. Altogether, 19 players have tested positive. What do you guys think about the NBA's handling of this thus far, and what do you foresee it kind of playing out in the future? Raquel?
Well, 2 isn't bad. I'll say that. I mean, when you look at 300, that's less than 1%. I mean, you're in a tenth of a point, maybe. So, relatively speaking, 2 is really good. And as they come in every day to practice, they're being tested, their temperatures being checked. So, I think they're catching them at the front door. So, I really 19 total. The other 17, it wasn't during the bubble. Hell, who knows what they were doing during their free time. So that's not surprising. But when you talk about two guys out of 322, it's less than 1%. So I would say the NBA is managing COVID well. Well, the NBA and the players, because it's really ultimately up to the players how to manage their time and being safe. So I think overall, it's just not a big deal. And the guys that have tested positive, they feel great. I was reading some of the comments and all of them said, you know what, I feel really good. So it's not affecting them from a physical standpoint, either the 2 guys that have contacted it. So I think overall the NBA is doing pretty good with the numbers and controlling it right now.
And we do have Coach Keaton back.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, let's hear
All right.
Coach.
Coach Keaton, you are back with After the Buzzer Sports Podcast. Go ahead.
I'm here.
Go ahead, Coach.
All right, Coach. Well, talk about your big news at Allen first before we kind of get into that topic.
Well, first of all, we transition into the NCAA Division II, which is huge for a small school like Allen. It's going to make a big difference in the small schools in the state of South Carolina. It's going to make a big deal with those guys. I mean, I think it helps us. Well, first of all, recruiting wise, the whole 9.
Coach, can you turn your volume down?
I did. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're gonna transition into it, and it's a big deal because we did it in a short period of time. That's like legendary time. We started this process actually in February, and we finished here in July. And that's all the visits, the site visits, the paperwork, the process, going through the books, the whole 9, just to make sure you're financially able to do the things that you say you can do. I think our leadership, Dr. McNeely and Coach Greg Thompson, myself, and all the coaches that's at Allen University, and the financial people, everybody that played a big role in helping us pull this off. It's just a great, great thing for Allen University, and we're all elated about it.
Coach, how's that going to help your recruiting? Could you go into that, how that will affect recruiting at Allen and how across all sports really?
Well, I think that, NCAA is a brand. NAIA is more of it's a brand, but it's not a larger brand as NCAA. So when you talk about that from a standpoint of the different type of athletes and the different type of kids you can attract to your institution because of the possibilities of you playing at a higher level and with a brand behind it, and it puts you in a situation where it helps all sports, basketball, football, soccer, women's soccer, and even the wrestling team will it just you play different schools, Newberry and those different type schools that's got a little bit of a name behind them. Some of the schools that we were playing at one time, most people don't know where Ave Maria at. Somebody don't know where the College of St. Mary's at. But the small schools that know that, they know them. We know where they at, but they don't know where they at. So nobody's going to come watch that game. But if I tell them I'm playing Tuskegee this weekend, people are going to show up. If I tell them I'm playing Benedict this weekend, people are going to show up. If I tell them Morehouse is coming in the building, they're going to show up for that.
Absolutely.
But you know what, Coach? Before we move on, now the Benedict game is real. For people that are from Columbia, South Carolina, we know how big of a rivalry it is when that Benedict and Allen team gets on the basketball court in particular. And now it's a real game. I think that's going to be huge to join them. And really, I think the kids certainly get a kick out of competing against each other. But now it means more now.
There ain't no doubt about that. It's the Battle of Taylor Street now, being right across the street from each other. The kids get to see each other. It's a real rivalry. Like when I got here, they was hoping that we could get on their schedule so we could play. We could talk junk to them. They talk junk to them. So it'll be a game that not only will it bring the kids at the colleges together, it's going to bring the community together. I think a lot of people in Columbia, a lot of people support Benedict and a lot of people support Allen. So, that's a large crowd game. And also it's a revenue game for both institutions. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to brand it and make it a good game.
I'm not sure if I'm going to wear Allen or Benedict on that night. Being a professor at both.
Well, you wear what your heart desires.
Well, Coach, I know you called in because we did want to ask you, what do you think about this news in the junior college ranks about all the fall sports moving to the spring of 2021 or the beginning late March or April? I mean, what do you think about that move? How do you think that's going to affect college football moving forward? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I have to take off my coaching hat and put on my administrative hat in this situation. Financially, it's going to be a strain on an institution. In the fall, you get a lot of kids. That's when your numbers are pretty decent, when kids are coming straight out of high school. In the spring, your numbers tend to take a dip of about 10%, or you lose kids that may fall out of school, whatever the source may be. Money is tight in the spring. You depend on the fall to be able to make your money, whether it be football and those other sports, to be able to carry you through the spring. So let's just say that we got to deal with the COVID-19 factor, that in the fall, a lot of kids are not, there's going to be a possibility. We still got a few more weeks to go to fight through a storm, where in the Southeast in certain areas, in California, where most of your JUCOs are located at, Mississippi, it's in dire need. It's stressing. And then you got the Kansas area where they're at. They might see a decrease in enrollment, where parents may say, I'm not going to send my kid back to school in the situation that they're in. Okay, and most JUCOs are made up of mostly sports people. So if you go to the coffee fields and those places, the kids that go to school there are mostly basketball, football, and those things. Let's just say you lose 10% of your kids, and now you lose 10% of that money. And now you got basketball going on, men's and women. You got football going on. You got volleyball going on. All these sports, you got track going on, track and field. How much of a strain would that put on a college budget to try to make sure you're talking about, you got to locate 12 buses because you might have one team going here, one team going there. There's a lot of thought process that has to go into the possibilities of even thinking about playing in the spring. Okay, so what that does for your spring sports? They're going to lose out on attendance and different things. That basketball, we all know, football and basketball are your money makers at your school. That's where the revenue comes in at. So now if I lose half of my attendance because we're playing on a Saturday night and somewhere against Miles College or somewhere, and everybody want to go to that game, or we playing Benedict that night and they playing a good game with Morris or somebody else, that's going to put a strain on the budget, because now people are going to say, well, I'm going to go to the football game, I'm not going to make it to the basketball game. I think you're robbing, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, not anybody else, I think that you're robbing the spring sports of their shine and glory, and basketball plays a big role in a lot of people's heart, just as well as football. But I don't know if it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but I think the financial strain for the institution will determine whether some schools even decide to go that route as well.
Coach, I think it's going to come down to a lot of colleges deciding which sport is most financially beneficial to them, and you may see some of them canceling some or part of the season for some of those spring sports if they go that route, which is unfortunate. But as you said, it's the economics that they're going to have to look at and see, because like they were saying, and when you're traveling, you might have to have 4 or 5 buses just to get, your football team. That is a tremendous strain. And so you're right. The economics are going to play a tremendous part in it.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I mean, it's a great idea. It sounds good, but the financial strain that it puts on the smaller colleges will kind of take them completely out, because you can't have 5 sports playing in one season. You divide in revenue, number one, and it's just very expensive to provide transportation, food, hotel, all the things that come with playing sports. So I think it would be a huge financial strain, just like, the smaller schools have already decided not to play. It's the same difference. The smaller schools will suffer financially trying to support that many sport teams at the exact same time of the year. And yes, enrollment is always less in the spring than it is in the fall. So it does change the dynamics of just financially being able to play.
Hey, Coach,
The second piece.
Our special guest here. Have y'all heard anything about y'all season as far as cancellation or playing, or where do you stand on that right now?
Right now, we're about 95% away from not playing. Yeah. The reason I said that the first time, I told you I just don't see that we could play with the situation and how I felt about it. If you read the articles that's been coming out, Coach Kirk Herbstreit made a comment about not playing sports in the fall, even at the SEC level, and the fans nearly decapitated him, and he stopped talking. Right. But now you got the SEC commissioner and everybody else sitting back now looking at it the way it is now, and they're not thinking about the financial part of it. They're starting to talk about how much it could hurt a kid, how much it could do damage in so many ways, all for a bottom line and for some money from a TV source. That's what it's all about, and nobody wants to hear that, even as fans. I'm a biggest sport fan as any of you guys are. I want to coach football in the fall. But at the end of the day, the reality is, and the big picture is, can we put those kids out there and sleep at night knowing that we can't take care of them?
Very good point. Well, Coach, we certainly appreciate your insight on that, and we definitely wish you for the best. But congratulations on the news. That's big news. Great job. So we'll definitely be hearing from you down the line. But we appreciate your insight and calling in, man.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
So, guys, it looks like Bryant is on with us now. So we probably should skip to that, I'm thinking, right?
Go ahead, Raquel. Go ahead.
Right. Bryant, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Your microphone's ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can't. Yeah, we can. I'm just messing with you. Guys, Bryant Matthews, Columbia High superstar, AAU superstar. He has represented the state of South Carolina very well when it comes to basketball in a basketball uniform. Bryant played at Virginia Tech, definitely a standout in Virginia Tech, some amazing stats. One of the top players in Division I basketball his senior year. So without further ado, Bryant, thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother.
We have a series of questions. We're all going to kind of chime in, but I'm going to get started with just, growing up in South Carolina and being able to take your platform, try out for NBA teams, go overseas, play for a couple teams, and what that means to our state and the state of South Carolina. So tell us a little bit about just your transition, how important AAU basketball was to your career and getting to college.
It was very important, especially around that time. I think it was only like 2 teams in the whole state, Midlands and my uncle's team. It might have been some other teams, but definitely one of the top teams in the state you want to be on was Midlands or Top Sports. And for some reason, my mom would never let me play with my uncle. I call him uncle with my coach, with Rob Randall. So it happened. I think my junior year going into my senior year, it happened. So it was fortunate. I did well. My team didn't do too good, but I did well individually. I think I went down there average 38 or 39. So it looked well. And the Virginia Tech coach at the time was Ricky Stokes was down there. Him and Mark Klein. They liked what they seen, so they pursued me ever since from that summer. So it's very important. Anybody knows if you do anything, you need recognition or need that platform for people to be able to see your talents, whatever that is. So it was extremely big.
Brian, I'm a little before you, so I came through the South Carolina system, and I remember when there was only two teams in the state of South Carolina, and I mean in Columbia in terms of AAU. Tell me what you think about the AAU system today, because back in the day when it was only two teams, you had to be able to ball. If you couldn't ball, you couldn't make it, right? And now it seems like everybody can make an AAU team. So how do you feel about AAU basketball? Do you think it's helped basketball, or do you think it's hurt in terms of development of players and kind of get to the next level?
Anything when you start producing on the mass system, it's all about the bottom line. When you start doing it beyond what it was meant for,
Right.
AAU was meant to get people in front of coaches and decide. And anything going forward and beyond, it's still that's the notion, but it gets blurred. Right. The lines get blurred. So the more you do it for money, then it's a profit. So I feel it helps way more kids than it hurts.
Okay.
But what people hide behind that should be talked about more, and people, like you said, the coach touched on it then, the bottom line, it starts to get shown, and then people try to hide their hand behind I guess the amateurism or people doing it for the love. But you got to have that talk when certain kids are generating a certain amount of money. So the overall AAU, I don't think hurts. Everyone wants their child to play. Everybody wants to brag on their child. So I have no problem with that. But it's the level of everything has levels in anything.
Exactly.
So if you're talking about getting your kid to the blue chippers, the Dukes, on that type level, in basketball would be the ACC, the Big Ten, so forth and so forth. Then you have to be realistic, and parents have to start doing their homework. So when you throw in all that, it's just, it helps. To answer the question, it helps way more kids than it hurt. But if in anything you do, you should definitely know what your capabilities is, which means your child at that point, and what's the plan, what is. I'm sure Raquel's on business owner. You got to have a plan. You just can't go in there just thinking for the best or hoping. You just got to go in there knowing what you do. If you hit bigger than good, then you plan from there. But I think it helps way more than what people want to argue about. What people argue about, sometimes I feel like they're just arguing out of their realm. They don't know once it gets that big. You're talking about money. You're talking about people that can generate money. You're talking about people going to see a kid like Zion, John Morant recently. Before then, I would say 7 when he was coming out. People paying to see this kid. So we're not talking about the average kid. So when people start asking these questions and having these conversations and these topics, I really feel like they should just not stay in their lane, but just understand the question, right? Understand what's at stake. What are you asking? Because AAU helps. It's not. That is not. Trust me. I'm probably one of the few kids.
I think we can agree that, there's levels to it. Parents have to do their research. But more importantly, what we don't talk about when we talk about AAU basketball are the deals that the coaches are making and the money that the coaches are making off of the kids and the parents. Some are aware, some are not. So AAU has, in my opinion, is no longer an amateur sport when you get to AAU because of all the deals that are going on behind the scenes and the money transfer from the athletic teams to the coaches. And frankly, the money is being transferred to players now in AAU, whether we want to have that conversation or not. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
I was just about to, I was transitioning into that because the next question, the next phase of that is your child that good? And I'm be honest, here we go again, we're looking in the mirror. South Carolina is not a basketball state. we just had two number one guys, number 1 and 2 from the state of South Carolina, and we don't have a shoe contract in the state of South Carolina. North Carolina, we are a farm state, meaning North Carolina, which has CP, Jordan, and probably up Team United up to recently, and I think there's another team out of North Carolina that have shoe deals, Nike, such and such. I want to say, I think the Adidas team. Then you got Atlanta with a bunch of teams. We're a farm state, so a lot of players we probably haven't heard about in the last 15 years. I'm just getting into that. Don't play in our state. They play with Georgia, they play with Florida, or they play with North Carolina, majority North Carolina. So we're a farm state. So you have to, what Raquel is talking about is true, but how many of those coaches are being honest with the players? So that's when the amateurism and the money start, because now it's recruitment. Now it's kind of like I'm gonna sell you a dream, and it's people here with the contract, and they're not doing that for it because it's for self gain. But I mean, that's something on a different topic. Stop lying to the kids, and that's the grown-ups. That has nothing to do with the parents, but that's, you have to research. But what do you do when you believe in your heart and you want your kids to play? So that in itself is just, like I said, you got to, you have to go beyond and look at the next state, who's playing, who's your top 25. And I think parents do that. I'm pretty sure they do that because they want their kids to play. But when you're talking about this money, I was telling the kid before, I was like, yo, trust me, if you was on that level, you would know. I was one of the few that was around the kid. Raquel, no. I mean, you from Columbia, you know about Jerome Harper. I grew up with Jermaine O'Neal, so
everybody know Buddy.
Yeah, so you know, I know what that looked like myself being I don't talk about it, I know what that looked like. So when people are telling these kids certain stuff, I'm looking at them funny because I'm like, yo, that's not even true, because trust me, certain people names still ring bells. So, and they're not too far removed. It's not that I'm not that old. So they're still in the mix of high ranking. If you don't know, if I tell you a name, you don't know that name, you need to worry about college first. Let's not worry about money. And I think what is happening is, because there's so many different AAU organizations, I don't know who's doing what. That's not my lane. Is really just to see what I've seen is there is recruitment. So if you got in Columbia area alone 12 teams, you do the math. You water down your talent.
So let's move on from AU basketball, because we want to get some other stuff in.
Because Raquel, hold on, Lee. Let me share a funny story real quick. It's gonna take 2 seconds. And Brian, I know you probably don't know this, but Ricky Stokes that you just mentioned, Ricky recruited me when I was at Wake Forest, and you know Ricky was a guard at Wake Forest. So Ricky calls me one day, and he like, who that dude at Columbia that's playing at Columbia High School in South Carolina? I was like, who you talking about? I was like, there ain't nobody at Columbia High that ever could hoop. So I don't know who you talking about. And he said, nah, man, it's a kid at Columbia High that everybody's saying can go. So I came out and saw you play. I can't remember who it was, but you was just giving everybody the business. I mean, you know, what you 6'6", 6'7", could shoot it, was all over the floor. And I called Ricky, and I was like, man, you better get this boy before everybody else does. So I think that's when it kind of started coming off the map. But I really enjoyed watching you play, man. So I just wanted to say that you, and especially your career at Virginia Tech, very proud of you from Columbia, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Hey,
absolutely.
Jones, but you certainly was a baller at Virginia Tech. I want to transition a little bit and have you talk to our audience about, because I have a couple of family members, and one, my nephew, who he finished up at Furman, and he's making the transition as to whether he's going to continue to dream of the NBA or making the decision of audience about, because you had to make that choice. Well, do I continue down the line of going to NBA camps, or do I go overseas and play? Talk to the audience about that decision-making process, and then some of the pros and cons about playing overseas.
Well, here it is. When you get in life, the older you get, the more decisions you make. Men and women, I think young ladies are a little bit different because, I mean, now it's a little better, but at the end of the rope is college. So you don't have young ladies so many, like, really googly-eyed of what's going to happen. So they realistic, once they hit college, it's a little easy for them. They accept it. So once they done, they're like, I'm done. Whereas guys, people like Raquel that are business-oriented, and this is what I advocate for, that are entrepreneurs, especially black, need to be around guys like that. and they need to learn early, and they need to be able to do that, because what happens now is some guys, the few, but once you get to that level, it's a business. You have to be a professional. What separates the professionals from everybody that think they can play is basically who's going to invest money in you, and can I invest money in you? So the transitional now is, what is your life like? Have you sacrificed? Do you have a girl, or do you have kids? Do you have a family? Because now here's the kicker. If you're not one of those top 5 to 7%, you're gonna have to scramble and go overseas. I know everybody want to go to the summer leagues and stuff. That looks good on your resume, but how are you marketing that? And so with someone like Raquel, I would push kids to, you gotta have a plan. And the transition is not hard, because what are you gonna do? Are you gonna sacrifice? Are you gonna shoot for your dreams and be satisfied with what happens at the end of the result because you gamble on yourself? I tell every kid, gamble on yourself, because ain't nobody else gonna gamble on you. So that's a good thing. But what happens is when they're transitioning, life happens. A kid or a girlfriend or they buy a car or something, life, the responsibilities start happening. So it makes transitioning a little harder.
Brian, let me ask you this, because I am curious for you to share this with the audience as well. So what I think Lee is saying is, okay, you had to make the decision to stop. You went to several camps where you tried out for NBA teams and you didn't make the team. And at some point, you had to make the choice to go overseas and play, because you were kind of at the end of the road with trying out for these NBA teams. Talk to us about that from an athletic standpoint, from a professional sports standpoint, when you decided to stop trying out for the NBA teams and went overseas. Tell us about that.
Mine personally wasn't. I didn't have that point. Some of that is choice. I chose because I'm a very impatient person, and I just be honest with me. I wasn't like the rest of them, and like I tell everybody, you got to know your situation. My situation was a little different. I was in the dunk contest with a little notoriety. The people I was around were pretty well. They're probably Hall of Famers now. So I was around a group of guys. So that really wasn't my issue. My issue was I didn't like the politics of it. And that really burnt me to go somewhere. And I know you hear a lot of guys say that, and I used to hear it, but until you deal with it, it's something different. To be around a kid and you better than and he's drafted, and you're just like, how in the world? You're like, what in the? So at that point, I knew then what I know now at 38 was, whenever I help some kid out, I'm telling the parents the truth, because if you're not in that package, if they're not, even your own agent, they got other agents, because you got to think some agents have more than 20, 40 clients. So who's going to be able to get in that? So it's about marketing. So for me, I just got tired of that. I got tired of hearing, well, they don't know your true position. And you just like, I can score, so I can play defense. So you just get tired of it, where you go somewhere to a market that, at that time I was in high Europe and they wanted me, and it's like, they're going to pay me a lot of money to go over here. Why would I risk my time, trying to establish something? And at the time, the D League wasn't what it was now. It was just beginning. It was called the D League. It wasn't the G League. It wasn't what it was. And I just felt like, which for me was better, even though the payoff and the reward, I could have, but I didn't want that. I was just like, I'd rather be where I need to be at versus jumping here, To me, that didn't make sense. To me.
So what I think I hear you saying is you made a choice to go overseas because you became impatient waiting on your turn in the NBA. Is that what I hear?
Yeah, it was between, and this is my funny story. So Udoka, I can't think his name, but it's Doka, it was between me and him, but he had been me and him had talked. He's the Spurs assistant coach. He's second behind Pop. Me and him had talked, and the Spurs had been on him for 2 years. He had been in the D League for 3 years, leading the league in scoring. The year he did not lead the league in scoring, they picked him up. And I remember having a conversation with him. He was like, man, this is the most frustrating thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, so when you leave? He was like, tomorrow. I said, are you excited? He said, not really. And I like the love. It was like, that's when I realized, like, you really have to have love for it, because it becomes a job. Like, at the end of the day, if you don't have it, and he was just a wit's end, because he had been there for 3 years, you got to think, at that point, we're barely making $30,000. I think it was like 25 was the max.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, like,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, your dream's a little bit better now. The salaries are higher. Of course, if I was coming out and I was under that same path projected, I stay because now I'm comfortable. You talking about coming out in Europe with my resume? I mean, I'm getting 6 figures easy. So it just becomes, like I tell, like most kids would do that. That's cool. If you want the hype and to say I did this, I did that, cool. I went for the money because I was like, I want to be well off later on in life. So it's whatever works for you.
And
Or
Brian,
you guys got any?
yeah, Brian, that's an interesting point that you made because a lot of people who haven't been through this don't realize you can have an agent, but he could be representing 40 players, and if you on the bottom of the totem pole, he ain't doing nothing for you. And and you also know that the agents had inside deals, so they also got places that they want to see you go. So, it's a hard game in a sense. But I also want you to kind of touch on because I dabbled overseas myself. Tell people just about overseas life and the grind and just how cutthroat it can be overseas. I know you touched on it being a business earlier, but what's your experience playing overseas and just the grind of it being professional basketball in a different country?
Well, I once again, my story is different. In the beginning, it's always the beginning. I didn't have that problem. I'm always my play has always been hard, erratic, and I'm all over the place. So Europeans fall in love with that. Places like Spain, I can score.
Yep.
Italy, so Turkey. So my style of play in Europe I really was on the way, before some other stuff we'll get into happened. So that didn't have that experience. Even after I didn't have that experience, my problem was I'm a nomad. I don't know how to sit still. And once I learned how to sit still, it was in the wrong country. So
right.
For me, I'm a people person. So I had Mike Davis, who was a guy that had like a 60-inch vertical that traveled. He was my mentor. Bobby Brenham played at University of Cincinnati. I had a bunch of older veterans that had already got to me and talked to me. Herman Alston, Jalen Rose. Like I had people that sat down, talked to me. I answered Chauncey Billups. So at this point, I'm a vet because I'm like, yo, whatever I do, I'm gonna go and make conversations with Harold. I can't think his last name. Make conversations with the GM. So I'd already, like I said, I had a system. Like I said, most kids don't know. They just, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this. I was like, man, I'm gonna do this. Talk to this guy, get him to like me, because if the GM like me, if the owner like me, and that's how I knew that I talked. That's why when I went back to the last time I went, I sat down and talked to Sam Mitchell. I forgot the guy's name that was the president over the Raptors at the time. I talked to him. Before that, Rudy Tomjanovich, who was the GM, and Mitch Kupchak. So I talked to them. I sat down and I noticed it was different. So I was like, hey, if I talk to these guys myself, it's hard when I call them because they was on my phone for them to ignore me. And Rudy Tomjanovich used to always call me Rob, Lil Rob, because I remind him of Rob Ory. So that should have happened. It was my agent waited too late. I should have been on the Lakers, but my agent waited too late and he messed that up. So I mean, technically, I made it. Rudy Tomjanovich, I don't tell this story. He came, he talked to me. It was Tony Bobbitt and me. And he's like, only see 2 people on this team. He talked to me. He played with the Lakers that 05-06 season. So it was like, I just want you 2 guys. God bless that. I got a chance to talk to Kobe. I never met him. I left. So, like I said, you get around them and you start learning relationships are the biggest thing. That's the key. So you just learn. That's why I try to teach these kids, like, just do what's best for you and make relationships along the way.
Yes. So Brian, your biggest takeaway from playing overseas was what exactly? From a pure basketball standpoint, leave out the coaches, leave out the players, leave out everything, just basketball.
Oh man, I think honest to God, I would probably go earlier. I would go because it was just, the culture was just different. Like when I went to Toronto, which is considered America, but it's not. The culture was different. Mexico, like the first time I went and played overseas, it was, I want to say, no more than 7,000 people, but it felt like 100,000 because they were soccer fans. I'm talking about these people are beating drums and blowing horns, and it's a little bit bigger than the old Keenan gym. And I mean, they loud, they're smoking in the stand, so it's fog. And I'm like, yo, I like this. like, so it was just different. I personally enjoyed playing overseas. I personally, I wish I could have played in the NBA, of course, and make it last. But man, at the end of the day, I got to do what I love for almost 14 years. I don't knock it. I took away outside all the, like anything outside of everything else. It was fun. It really was. The culture was different, and I loved it.
Great.
Guys, any other questions before we close out? All right. Thank you so much, Bryant, for joining us. We appreciate your time, man, and certainly appreciate all you've done for the state of South Carolina on the basketball court and the work that you're doing with youth right now. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate having me. Brian. I get to come back. I definitely will keep watching. You guys do a great job. I'll keep it up. Thank you, Raquel.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Take it easy.
That's great.
Very, very, very nice. Yeah, he was a heck of a player, Raquel. I remember him from, his days at Virginia Tech too. And I had a lot of coaches back in the day that used to always talk about it. But he could give it to you on both ends. That was the thing about him. He was tough on both ends. He could score it, and he can go down and shut you. And he could take you completely out of a game. So, good to hear from him. Yeah,
you're talking about someone who got to see him play all 4 years of high school. Travel basketball, and it almost was supernatural, to see him score 40 points. There was one big game, and they lost, but he scored 39 points without being tired and had fun the whole time. He scored 39 points and probably had 15 rebounds and 7 assists, and he did it so easy. It was no doubt that he was going to go on to play big college basketball. And I think during that era of AAU ball, Buddy was the best player I'd ever seen. Yeah. And we all know he had a raw deal. He was supposed to go to Cincinnati, didn't go to Cincinnati, had a deal to go in the NBA, just all the mess that happened with that kid. He was the best player I'd ever seen. And I thought Bryant was probably really close.
Yeah, Buddy was special, but if I had to pick a player, I would have probably went with Bryant, to be quite honest, because he just gave you so much. Buddy could score, he could handle it. There's a lot of things he could do offensively, but Bryant Bryant to me could just give you so many things. I used to love watching him play, and it was even more because he was from Columbia. So, good to hear he had a great career, but Go ahead, Lee. I'm sorry.
The political side of the NBA, though, that's sort of what I took from him, from his interview, Mar and Raquel. Yeah. The NBA and sports in general, how it's set up, you don't always have the best 12 on the team. You don't always have the best 360 players in the league. It's political. It's where you play. If you play in Utah, you might have half the team that's Caucasian. And that's done for a specific reason. If you play in San Antonio, you may have a lot of foreign players on the team. So that's unfortunate because of the talent that the young man had. But the way these leagues are set up, you don't always have the best players in the league.
You don't. And another point that he made, especially with the Lakers, timing. Timing is so important in this as well. And a lot of guys that I know that should have played. I mean, we all could tell those stories that we knew plenty of guys who could have made it in the league, but agents are maybe high up there and getting guys in wrong spots or wrong positions in terms of where they can fit. And the timing, and it's unfortunate to hear that about the Lakers because it just seems like the time was a little bit off with his agent. But good interview. Appreciate him coming on.
Hey, we do have a comment from Facebook regarding that interview, and it's from Elliot Lyons, and he says, "Thanks, Lee, Marvin, and Raquel. My son is very near signing his first contract to play in Europe, and we are all very excited. I was glad to hear Bryant say that he enjoyed playing overseas. That was helpful and reassuring."
Yeah. Listen, I mean, playing overseas is, from a cultural standpoint, I'm glad that Brian brought it up. I mean, he's going to experience things and that most people won't get to experience. He's going to be taken care of. You're going to be treated, a lot differently than you would in other places, and they are sports fanatics. So a lot of guys do have great experiences, and I think that if you can go and you can play and you can make money and you can have culture and travel and see all the things that you otherwise wouldn't see, I would be all for it and do it as long as you can.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we'll keep with basketball. Let's kind of touch back on that LeBron James, Anthony Davis not wearing any social justice messages on their jersey. I think this might be an important one to touch. How do you guys feel about that? Do you guys think that they're missing an opportunity? Lee, what do you think about that?
I don't necessarily think they're missing an opportunity. Look, LeBron's, his reach and his platform is so much bigger than just wearing a name on the back of his jersey. So in some players, I know you saw that the brother that plays for the Heat, that played for Philly. What's his name, Marv?
Oh, he doesn't want to put any name on his jersey. That one? Yeah.
So Jimmy Butler. That's what I'm gonna say. Make your statement in whatever way you want to make it. But that symbolism, where I am very happy that the NBA is doing some things, the Black Lives Matter on the court and allowing the players to do this or that or the other. I do think they should have let them have a little more freedom as long as they didn't get buck wild. But LeBron's platform is bigger. Anthony Davis' platform is bigger. As long as they're doing something to support the cause, I have no problem with them not putting anything on their back, having their own name on their back. That doesn't bother me at all. I think everybody has a different platform. Everybody's in a different space. I just say do it constructively, do it that it affects not the basketball player, but the average person out there. And whatever you do it to make change. So I'm cool with not having anything on it.
Absolutely. Raquel?
You know what? I don't, I was a little surprised, but listening to LeBron comments, he said something that kind of sat with me and I couldn't let it go. And, he basically said the list handed down to players. And it sat with me and I was like, it's not that big of a deal. But I thought perhaps if they would have allowed the players to submit slogans or whatever, it would have been a little different. We know there are a couple of players that was just not happy with what they came up with, but I felt he made it a point to say the list they handed down to us. And I could be reading more into it, I don't know. But when I heard Davis respond and he said, I played this name on the back of my jersey. Social justice is important to me, but this is for my family, all the people that supported me. Like, it's important to me to have my name on the back of my jersey. I understand that. We just got off the phone, with Bryant. Not many guys make it. So it's okay to say, you know what, this is my legacy. This is a part of Black Lives Matter. This is a Black legacy. It's important to me. This name is my family, my community. So I understood his standpoint and it was enough for me alone. LeBron, he responded with, it's not a part of my mission and my goals right now. I don't know. That was a little confusing to me only because he has been in the forefront of I can't breathe. So I was like, but you've already been doing it. You've already put yourself out there. Your social media platform.
But Raquel, is there a need to just, like I said, maybe that's not the platform that he wants to use his influence on as far as the social justice message, though. Do you think he feels that, look, I'm going to affect things in a much different way? And that's a little bit, like you said, I didn't even really get to decide what I wanted. I didn't have a chance to think about what I wanted to put on there before you handed all these down. I can do it in a
right.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you guys are saying. I think Raquel made a very good point. LeBron has done so much stuff. There's things that he's done that we don't even know about. So I'm okay with it. I think both of you pretty much hit it on the head. So I'm definitely okay with the decision that the two of them are making not to do so. But kind of moving forward with another little story in basketball here. The Rajon Holmes, he broke the NBA's bubble protocol to pick up some food. because they say the food is so trash in the bubble. Do you guys think, and especially considering that we just talked about COVID-19 testing being they only had 2 players and it being so well, I mean, do you think other violations are going to happen? I'm going to go on and start and say, hell yeah, other violations are going to happen. We know they're going to happen. And what I'm interested in seeing is how is testing going to work, about 2 months into this. That's what I'm curious to see, Lee. When guys start getting anxious, guys got all kind of money. Guys tired of being in the bubble. Guys tired of dealing with the same people every day, and they used to a lot of access. Yeah. NBA players got they hands reach far. You putting them in a bubble like they back in the AAU days. Yeah, other violations about to happen. More positive tests about to happen. That's why I say this is gonna be. I don't know how well this is gonna really work because these dudes not used to this. I'm telling you, they not. So I know other violations are gonna happen.
Violations and babies, Marv. Violations. That's all I can see. Violations and babies. Like I said, yeah. Either the NBA gonna start becoming part of the escort service, or I'm just keeping it real, Marv. I gotta keep it real.
You gotta keep it real.
Service, or you're gonna have a lot of fraternity suits come next year because people are going to be fouling because they don't, hey, this is my baby's daddy. That's what's going to happen. These workers, come on, man. Look, now some of them are going to be there less than others, but them ones that go deep in the playoffs, well, you better watch out. Violations out the mud. It's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. So, and Raquel, I'm just being honest. I'm just keeping it real. I'm not a second to anything, but them brothers they're not. It's going to be unfortunate because, hey, that's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Already, look, the brother said, look, I ain't eating this food. I want some church chicken. I want them to deliver me some church chicken. I'm going to get me some chicken. And he went, so it's going to happen. It's going to happen. More violations.
No doubt about it. Raquel?
I mean, it's not worth carrying on to me personally, but yeah, I think there'll be more violations. They're in a bubble. They're millionaires. It was stupid of him, in all honesty, but when you think about the risk you're taking, the other players, your teammates, it was stupid. If you're going to do it for a better reason. Do it for a better reason than food. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I think there will be more violations as we see.
He wanted some ribs, Raquel. He wanted some ribs. Let that man eat him some ribs. That's all he wanted. No, just kidding. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. Them COVID numbers gonna rise. We all know what's gonna happen. So, and that's what's gonna be interesting to see how it affects play. How it's gonna affect some of these teams moving through the season. But the TBT did a great job though. Did you watch the TBT tournament, you guys? Yeah,
that kind of went on.
I did.
I think they
be done, Marv. That's what it does. It shows from a basketball perspective. I don't know about from a basketball perspective. It certainly can be done.
Yeah, it was a great tournament, high level basketball. Now the TBT players are a little bit different than NBA players. A lot of these guys still trying to get on, still trying to, prolong their careers. So you got a little different element in terms of keeping them in the bubble versus NBA players in the bubble, completely different. And they was in Columbus, Ohio, so that's also a little bit different. But it shows it can be done. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of plays itself out. So good discussion. So moving forward, I know we talked to Coach Keaton a little bit earlier about this, but I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, even the Power 5 conference and Lincoln Riley stating that he was okay with spring football being played with some of the Power 5 conferences. And of course, we know that will compete against some of the, winter sports such as basketball and other things. So what are your guys' thoughts about that? I know we touched on it earlier, but do you think that let's just say from a Power 5 perspective, do you think that's something that can be pulled off? Lee, let me hear what you think about that.
If the Power 5 moves football to spring, they're king. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, college basketball has been watered down for a number of years, Marv.
It has.
And so if they were to do that, just think about it. It's going to affect, into the tournament. The weekend part of it, the weekday part of it would be good, but the weekend part, football would be king, and we would those spring sports would suffer tremendously. Now, if it push come to shove, they'll do it because of the amount of money and the TV deals for football that's so lucrative. Really, the only lucrative thing, the conferences have these affiliations with TV stations, but the tournament is the most lucrative thing for NCAA. So they still might make some money, but football, even if they play 8 or 9 games like they're talking about playing just conference only in the spring, it'll be a tremendous windfall because of the amount of tension that it draws. So it probably will be best to do it, but you got to think about the players when you talk about starting a season in late March or even April. Look at the wear and tear on their bodies, especially for the seniors. There might be a lot of people that opt out of playing.
Right.
Season that's coming up because you can't play football, damn near 10, 12 months out of the year.
Right.
That's an interesting proposition. Would some of the seniors or the draft eligible people just opt out to not playing if they move to the spring? So lot to consider.
Yeah, that would be the biggest thing for me to look at it is how many guys are going to opt out of playing. You got a lot of guys that will be not even seniors. You got other guys that will become draft eligible. And it will be interesting to see how many would decide to go ahead and forego that senior season or junior season, whatever it may be, and to go into the NFL. Also, I think the writing is kind of on the wall, Lee. I think they're going to do it in the spring. I don't know how you start a college football season right now, especially after, the SEC commissioner and some of the coaches and, the powers that be got together and start talking. You kind of see that it's hard to fathom how they can pull off this season right now.
I'm less confident than I was, Mark. I really am.
Me too.
I was damn near 90-95% they were going to play. I'm 50-50 right now because it's going to be interesting over the next week or so to see what they're going to do.
Well, Raquel, I know you got something to say, so I see you back there. So what's going on?
Because I saw
that. I knew Lee was going to backpedal in this. He didn't have a choice. It's funny. He was so confident, overly confident, actually. And now to see him kind of backpedal in it is just funny to me. I think I knew this was going to happen. It's kind of a common sense thing. It wasn't a lot of thinking in it. It was common sense to me. Outside of being a mother, it was common sense. So I'm not surprised at all. I think you probably will see a spring season, but I do think it's going to cause complications for the other sports. I don't think it's going to be an easy transition like they're thinking. I think there's a lot of office time. I think their budget's being slid all around office desks right now. I think they are uncertain, period. I don't think they'll play a full football season. I think it'll be maybe half of a season, if that, because you can't just take away spring sports. You just can't do it.
You can for football, Raquel.
And I think for football guys, you have some schools that generate more money on the basketball court. You look at the Duke.
Very few.
So you're not going to have some of the ACC teams settle for that. You're going to have those basketball coaches fighting for their rights as well. You'll start to see, just like college. I don't know if you guys are aware of this now, but like one college in particular, and I won't say any names, their band and their singers generate more money than the athletic team. Their band and their singers get national, international, notoriety. So that budget plays for some of the sports. And that band director says, hey, we're not allocating our money over here. So just like they have that much say so, they also can say, hey, we put just as much money on the table during this season and we don't want a reduced basketball season. Now, there are not a lot of schools that can do that or have that power, but you do have some basketball programs that generate more money and they're going to want their full season. So it'll be interesting to see how they work around it. I don't know. I think it's doable, but I think it's going to be some give and take on both ends.
I don't think they're going to play in the spring. I think if they don't play in the fall, and Raquel, I just changed my mind. I'm 60-40. They're going to play right now. That's okay. I'm 60-40. They're going to play. I got to get back on the other side. That's for you. But if they were to do it, Marv, basketball can forget it. I
Yeah,
mean,
they can forget it. They can forget it.
If they move football, and I'm just talking about the Power Five. I'm not.
Yeah,
those
Power
schools,
Five, right?
Right, Raquel. They're probably. But if they move the Power Five schools in football, you forget about basketball.
No,
because
you forget it.
if you go to CBS and they say, "Do I want to air the SEC basketball or the SEC football or basketball?" You'll see them late night. I mean, that'll be on tape delay. So
they'll be on tape delay.
Very interesting. It'll be very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be continued. We'll definitely see how this plays out over the next few weeks. A decision has to come soon, so this will be an interesting space to watch. So to close out, the NFL, they have unveiled a new Oakley mouth shield for the NFL players.
By the way, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, Raquel. It's a beautiful thing.
You got your Dallas Cowboy one yet?
Oh, and we're not going to end the show without talking about Dak's non-contract signing, but go ahead.
I mean, we can go ahead and talk about that right now if we want to.
Conveniently, it's not on our schedule today. Conveniently.
You noticed that, Raquel.
On the schedule. So
I think the writer must have just forgot about this.
Guaranteed. He's going to sign. I mean, he's the best. It's guaranteed. He's going
to. Let me help you.
Dallas did not do what Lee again. Lee was very, very, very confident.
Hey. Wait a minute, Raquel. You forgot Lee, Dak Prescott Jones. We forgot about that part.
He would have bet his baby on this, and he loved his son.
Hey, look, I don't have a problem with what
he was very confident, but let's listen to his back pedal. Go ahead, Lee.
This is not a back pedal. Dallas made a tremendous mistake. Dallas made a mistake. Dallas, and they're going to end up having to pay Dak more money especially over the 2-year period. But even I look for him to make almost $123 million, $125 million over the next 3 years, because Dallas is going to have to pay the piper. Look, Dallas is going to be good this year. And Mar, I see Super Bowl really. Now, if they go to the Super Bowl, if they make the NFC Championship, there's no way Dallas cannot pay him. So Dak betting, as long as Dak Prescott doesn't get hurt, he's fine. He's gonna be rolling into the dose.
Lee, I see. You hurt. I can see it. Lee is hurt.
The deadline
Lee hurt right now.
The deadline went by without a deal. Lee, you were so confident. You knew. You said this is gonna happen.
I was confident.
What happened, Lee?
Make the right decision.
What happened?
Right decision. But you know what, Raquel?
What happened?
The quarterback this year is still Dak Prescott.
What happened, Lee? What happened to the contract you were so certain about?
Tampa.
You don't have explanation. You can't tell us what happened in the back office.
I'm good.
What happened, Lee? Tell us what happened. We want to know. What happened?
What happened?
Dallas made a mistake. And that's okay.
What happened was Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton told you all you needed to know about Dak Prescott and how they felt about it. I'm telling you.
Prescott a contract between, it's reported, 33 and 35 million, but with $100 million guaranteed. Look, Dak is smart. If the baseline starts at $110 million guaranteed for Dak Prescott, because Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, that's their baseline. So he was smart not to take that deal. He's going to get paid. Look,
but you said Dallas was going to do the deal. I'm not saying Dak is smart or not smart. I'm not saying what Dak is. I am saying you said Dallas was going to make this deal happen. Dallas was going to give him the 4 years. Dallas was going to give him 36 million, 34, 36 million. What happened, Lee?
Well, look, they offered him that. He just didn't take it. They offered him 33 million. He wanted more. I have no problems with it. The offer was there. Look, hey, Raquel, look. Even the sun shines on a dog's behind twice a day. Come on. I mean, it happens, okay? Talk about the Oakley Shield, Marv. Good Lord.
I gotta let Raquel bask in this for a little bit, man. So, you're trying to push me on, man.
I mean, I'm gonna take it. I said it didn't happen. I take it.
Listen. We gonna table the Oakley mouth shield for next show. We'll be getting close to the time. So, we started a new little segment here where we get some closing remarks from all of our panelists here. So, Let's start with you, Lee. What are your closing remarks to today? What are some things that you want to kind of just share?
Yeah. For me, real quick, uh, college athletics. When you look at the model of how all these XFLs and these different leagues have tried to uh, infiltrate and take over and compete with the NFL, I think that's the wrong model. I think if black ownership or any ownership wants to compete, they need to compete with the college level, right? They need to start recruiting these young people and start their own league, focus on kids from 18 to 21. And then when they're draft eligible to go into the league after they're 3 years removed from college, they can. It would be a great windfall for young people. You can set aside, similar to what the XFL did, $125,000 per player, and you can pay them. And in 3 years, they can be draft eligible to go into the NFL. It's a model, and it's something that I'm going to write a paper about. Raquel, I want you to read it because it's going to help you out and understand this stuff as I try to help you. But I'm just saying.
You're so confident until you're wrong as hell. Jesus.
But Bob, I think it's going to be, and on another segment, I want us to talk about it because I think it's a great model, and I want Coach Keaton on it to sort of go over it. But I think a new model for college to compete for young African-American athletes is for businesses to focus on the athlete, as we've been talking about over the last few weeks, from 18 to 21, and get them paid professionally and quit saying this amateurism stuff because they're not really amateurs.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it another day.
Well, I'm gonna go real quick, Raquel, just because mine is really nice and quick. I mean, I just want to speak to Daniel Snyder for 1 second. Now, we talked about this earlier, and we know, I had an affinity for some of the other names, but with all the slack and all the beating you've taken over the past couple years about this name, do the right thing. You in Chocolate City. You already know what it is in DC. You need to go with the Red Tails.
Yep.
Kill it. Let's make it happen. This is what we need. Do the right thing, Daniel Snyder. Come on with the Red Tails, brother. All right, Raquel, close us out.
Yeah, I want him to go with the Red Tails as well, but I'll close out with college sports and that transition for students from high school to college to professional sports. One of the things that we did not get a chance to talk about with Bryant is some of the mistakes he made in that transition and growing up, how he grew up without the resources as a lot of white players get, coming out of a 2-family home, having money, not making decisions based on just finances. We have to rally around our young Black athletes and be a voice of reason and not always want something in return, because we forget that they're coming from an environment where they have nothing and walking into a situation where they have so much, and they don't change just because they have that money. So my closing remarks would be, we need to do a better job of supporting our athletes, and we need to, when we know a Black athlete, we need to get around them and we need to rally so that they can make better decisions. One of the things that he didn't get a chance to talk about that he was willing to talk about is being incarcerated. He was at the top of his game and did time in Australia. And you can look it up, it's there to see. But one of the values, I think, and that was a tough road, he lost everything essentially, but one of the conversations we have to start having with our young men and women is how to take care of yourself. Don't put yourself in bad situations because you are not like them. You don't have the same rights as they have. You're still a part of this Black Lives Matter thing. You're still on the chopping scale with all of us. And we make a lot of bad decisions because we simply don't have good people around us. So in closing, I'll say we have to rally around Black athletes and fill in where mom and dad did not, help them make better decisions so that it doesn't end so tragically.
Absolutely. Well said, Raquel. Yeah, thank you for touching on that. Well, we've come to that time, folks. We appreciate you definitely tuning in. Brian Matthews. Yeah. Brian Matthews, a big shout out to you. I appreciate you coming on, as Raquel said, sharing your experiences. That was great to hear. You guys hit us up, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, subscribe, like us, all the good things. You know what to do. I'm Marvin Orange, of course, for LP in the background. Lee, no new contract signed, Dak Prescott Jones.
Jealousy is a disease. That's all I'll say. Jealousy is a disease.
And always Raquel M.R. Thomas, who always brings the knowledge for us. We appreciate you guys tuning in until Saturday, our next show, 11 o'clock. We will see you then. But everybody have a blessed evening and appreciate it.